Hi guys, welcome back to the Mina Does Art Stuff YouTube channel. My name is Mina. Quickly just wanted to hop on here at the beginning to let you know that I am going to be testing out and reviewing this 12 colour Arteza Earth Tones Gouache set. This is not a sponsored video, I purchased these paints myself. But if you do enjoy this video and you enjoy videos like this, then please make sure to like, subscribe, leave me a comment, let me know what you think of this set, and I will see you guys very, very soon. Alright, thank you. Alright, hey guys, so you'll have seen me do this little setup at the beginning in like time lapse. I got this set of Arteza Earth Tones Gouache on Amazon. I didn't realise they did these, and they have different sets now. So this is the Earth Tones one. They have a seascape one. They have like a couple of other 12 colour sets, like curated sets, which I thought was really quite interesting. And I was enticed by the earth tones, by the neutral palette of colours. And I'm not sure if I've ever mentioned it, but I do have the 24 colour set as well, which I found in a sale on eBay a while ago. So I got those as well. And if you have the 24 colour set, just so you know, 3 of the colours are also in this earth tone set. So the yellow ochre, burnt umber and grey are in both the 24 basic set as well as the earth tone set. So just so you know before you go ahead and make any decisions. I squeezed them out on this palette. From when I did that to now, it's been about, I don't know, 15-20 minutes or so, and yep, still wet, but they're starting to look like they're drying up a little bit, like they're starting to form a thin film over the top. Don't know why I just stuck my finger in that, but that's how things are going today apparently. So we're going to swatch it out on this black paper and this white paper. So this black paper is my Derwent drawing book. Yeah, Derwent drawing book in black. I've been so far mostly just swatching some different materials in it that I want to test on black paper. And then this sketchbook is a sketchbook by Pink Pigs here in the UK. Let me grab the, there we go, Pink Pig. Here in the UK is their A5 watercolor sketchbook with their Amelie paper, so it's their own kind of paper. They call it a watercolor paper. I would say it's more of a mixed media paper. It's very smooth. It's more of a hot pressed than a cold pressed, and so it has very minimal texture, but it's not the best for watercolor, but it's passable, it's usable, and I've been having fun with it. It's actually getting close to being filled, and I only started this somewhat recently. So I'll talk more about it once I finish the sketchbook and I can do a bit of a flip through, chit chat with you guys about it. I do have 2 other versions of this sketchbook that I ordered at the same time in different sizes with the same paper. So I'm going to talk more about those and what my plans are for those when I come to do that video later. So I will have links to all of these materials in the description box below. And yeah, so you can actually get these paints. I think you can get it either directly from Arteza, from their website, or on Amazon. So I ended up getting them from Amazon only because I could get free shipping. If you order it directly from Arteza, you would have to pay shipping, or you'd have to order enough to meet the free shipping threshold, as it were. Alright, so let's go through. I've not swatched these before, it's my first time swatching them, so as we go through, I'm going to keep this real time today and just see how it goes. Hopefully it won't be too long, and I also have my window open, so apologies for any background noise, and sort of give you my real time first impressions with these paints. So we'll start with the titanium white, that's PW6. And I wanted to do it on black and white paper so we can really see the opacity. So I'm going to do a thick application first, and then we'll do a watered down one. Okay, I'll add a bit of water to that. I do think it's fairly thick straight out the tube, like you probably do want to add a bit of water to it to make it a smoother consistency. I'm still very new with gouache. I'm still learning about mixing the material to the right consistency and painting with it, etc. So if I don't do this perfectly, just bear with me. So the first part of the swatch is going to be pretty much straight out of the tube, just picked up with a damp brush. And then as we go, I'm going to add a bit more water to it, and then even more water for the final part of the swatch. And I'm just using a flat brush for swatching today. Okay, so the next colour is pale yellow. This is PW6 and PY42, so it's a mixture of white and yellow ochre. Add a bit more water to that. It's a really nice sort of creamy pale yellow colour. I'd say it's more like a peach or apricot type of shade. So hopefully you can see that. I'll do close-ups and stuff at the end once it's all been swatched and dried. Alright, next up we have yellow ochre, which is just PY42. So I'm not sure how opaque this one's going to be. All the colours in the set are marked as being opaque, so we shall see. Even the ones that haven't been mixed with white. This is fairly wet. It's very smooth. It's going down quite nicely on this paper, on both papers rather. A bit of water to that. It's a nice rich yellow ochre colour, like a warm yellow. Next up we have taupe. This is sort of like a warm pale grey sort of shade in my opinion, with a bit of like a reddish purplish undertone. It was PW6, PBK11 and PBR6. So it was a mix of a white, a black and a brown pigment. And I would say that's actually a really nice taupe colour. It's definitely what I would imagine a taupe to look like. Okay, so far I'm really liking these shades. Next up we have the only blue in this palette, and this is Stone Blue. And this is my first sort of gripe with this colour selection, is that there's only one blue, and for something that's been marketed and billed as being like an earth tone set and like a landscape set, only having one blue seems a little bit strange. And it's a mix of PW6, so white, PB15, so that's a phthalo blue, PG7, which is a phthalo green, and PBK11, which is a black. Next up we have Seaweed, which is a dark green colour. So the Seaweed is made up of PY42, so that yellow ochre colour, PG7, so again phthalo green, PB15, phthalo blue, and PBK11. I'm starting to get the feel that there's a lot of repeated pigments being used amongst these colours, which actually not the worst thing in the world, because at least then you know the colours should mix together fairly nicely if they have similar pigments in them, and the palette overall is going to feel more cohesive as a result as well. So that's not the worst thing in the world. I kind of look at one of these sorts of curated sets, especially with lots of these colours that have lots of mixes, there are lots of mixed pre-mixed convenience colours, that was what I was looking for, where the colours are made up of multiple pigments. I have no issues with that, especially when it comes to gouache. And with this set, I kind of imagine it as being one of those things where it's not intended as being a versatile mixing palette, especially with this earth tone set. I wouldn't call this a versatile mixing palette, and I don't think that's really what it's intended to be. So in that regard, I don't mind, and I actually think having the colours made up of lots of similar pigments works well in this case, because then they're going to have a natural cohesion with each other. Cohesiveness, there we go, not cohesion. Cohesiveness between them when you're painting. Okay, so next up what we're working with here now is olive green. And this is a mix of PW6, PY1, which is a yellow pigment, PB15 again, phthalo blue, and PY42, so that yellow ochre colour. I really like olive greens. And the seaweed is a really nice sort of deep green as well. It's a really nice sort of earthy green colour. It's not too garish. Sorry, I can't see it down. This is like the best way I could get everything on the screen, so like I said, I'll do close-ups at the end, so apologies if anything's a little bit cut off. Alright, so next up we have latte brown. And again, it's kind of like a creamy beige colour, a bit darker than the pale yellow. Okay, and this is made up of PW6, PY42, so same mix as the pale yellow, but it also has the addition of PBK11, which gives it a darker tone. So I guess it is like a darker version of pale yellow, and that was before I realised what the pigments were. So that's interesting, that's funny. But again, like I said, I very much see this as a set of convenience colours and not really a mixing set. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, as long as you know that's what you're getting going into it, and I did. So I didn't go into this purchase thinking I was getting a versatile mixing palette, because if that's what you're expecting, you will be disappointed. But I'm very interested in playing around with gouache more, having fun with gouache landscapes and stuff like that, and I think this set would be really good for playing around with. Okay, next up we have toffee, which again, this seems like a darker version of the taupe colour. So we'll see here with the colour mixture in a second, pigment mix. So the toffee is actually exactly the same pigment combination as the taupe, PW6, PBK11 and PBR6. So I imagine there's just a bit more of that black and brown pigment in this mixture than in the taupe. You know, I guess you could argue, would it have been better to have included the single pigments, the PBK11 and PBR6 in the set instead, so you could mix your own version of this? Possibly, I mean that's one argument to have, but like I said, this is a convenience set of mixes. And sometimes it's just nice to have a set of colours curated for you that you can sit down and paint with and know that all the colours go well together. And you don't have to think too much about it, you can focus on the actual painting aspect of what you're doing. Okay, so next up we have tan. And this is a slightly pinker version of like the toffee colour. And this is made up of PW6, PBK11, so the white and black, PY42, so that yellow ochre, and PR101, which is a earth red pigment. So there, that gives us that slightly pink undertone. Okay, I just realised my camera had stopped recording at some point, so I'm not sure where it stopped. But just in case it got cut off, this burnt umber is made up of PBR6 and PY42. Final colour in this palette is the grey. It's a very sort of blue leaning grey. And this is made up of PBK11, which is a black pigment, and PW6. It's just a mix of black and white. So there isn't actually a blue pigment in it, but a lot of blacks tend to lean more blue anyway, so this grey is definitely more of a blue leaning grey in my opinion. So I guess this would work for like a stormy sky or something as a second bluish sort of colour on the palette along with the stone blue. I do think this set could have done with another blue personally. Like, you've got a lot of these taupey, brown, peachy sort of colours. I feel like we could have had one less of those and an extra blue, and it would have been a better balanced, slightly more balanced set. We've got a lot of these pale, like I said, pale taupey, beigey, creamy colours. Probably could have done either without the taupe or tan. Like, these two are very similar colours, I feel. Or even the pale yellow, because you do have the PW6 and the PY42, so you could easily mix that specific colour. So, because you do have the single pigments that make it up. So I would probably say the pale yellow could have been removed and another blue could have been added in. So looking at the 24 set that I have here, you could probably add in something like a sky blue or the ultramarine instead to this set, because the stone blue is quite a green leaning blue, so maybe a more of a blue, like a red leaning blue would have been better to kind of make it a little bit more balanced. But overall, really love this set. I'm going to give it about 10 minutes to finish drying. It's a really warm day, and like I said, I've got the window open, so it shouldn't take too long, and then we'll come back and have a look at how they look up close, and then maybe, if I'm feeling up to it, we'll do a couple of little quick sketches with the gouache and see how it works in practice. Okay, so the gouache is pretty much all dry. Let's take a look at the swatches on the black paper. I'd say all of these colours are pretty opaque, even in their watered down versions. You know, some of them, in like the yellow ochre in the most watered down version, is definitely more transparent, and same with the olive green and even like the latte brown. But I think with any gouache, the more you water it down, the more transparent it's going to be by its nature. But otherwise, I'd say they're all pretty decent opacity right there on the black paper. And you can sort of see what I mean when you look at it on camera. There's lots of these lighter sort of earthy tones, and I feel like one or two of them could have been swapped out for a couple of other colours that would have worked well in like a landscape set. Like a darker blue maybe would have worked quite nicely with that set. But that is not a problem. Like I said, you can always supplement with other colours that you have of gouache or from your own from other, like I said, other colours that you have. I wouldn't necessarily consider this as like a starter set or a beginner set of gouache, unless you only want to use these colours, because like I said, it's not a versatile mixing palette. It's not what I would consider a versatile starting set. I do think the 24 set from Arteza or other sort of starter, beginner, basic gouache sets would be more suited for something like that. But if you already have some gouache and you just want to play around with a fun sort of curated set of colours, I do think this is really fun, and I do think it would be really fun to use for landscapes. And like I said, if you have trouble like putting together a colour palette or putting together like a, especially for something like landscapes in this case, that you're not sure about how to put colours together to create a cohesive look, this is not a bad way to start and to experiment, because you know, you can lay out these colours and you can use them all together and they will work quite nicely, and you don't necessarily have to worry about creating your own colour palette from scratch, if that makes sense. So that's just my opinion. I haven't made anything with these yet, so this is just based off of my first impressions and what I think about the set from swatching it. Like I said, I will do a couple of sample paintings, I think, in my in this sketchbook in a second. I'm just going to pop this aside so it's not in the way, and we'll take a look at the colours on the white paper. So if I just hold it here. You can see everything, hopefully, and you can see the pigment information as well. Again, I think they work really well on the white paper as well. It hasn't buckled, it hasn't caused the paper to buckle too much. On this side, it has curled up a little bit on the edge, but otherwise the actual paper hasn't gone wavy, it hasn't buckled at all. So it works, it holds the watercolor, the water-based medias quite well. And yeah, so this is the book where I'm going to do my sample painting in a second. So I will probably do that on time-lapse just because I don't want this video to be too long, but I did keep the swatching in real time, so I hope you enjoyed seeing that. And yeah, they all dried down quite matte, really nice, pretty smooth in the thickest consistency. Once you start watering it down, you can see it's a little bit streaky, but you could probably fix that by layering or just being a bit more careful when you're putting down your washes of color. Like I said, I'm fairly new to gouache, so I'm still learning the best way of handling the medium. And yeah, so those are my initial thoughts. Like I said, I'll have links down below to where you can purchase these if you're interested. Some of the links will be affiliate links. All that means is I get a small percentage from any sales that are made through those links. Really appreciate if you do use them, just because it helps me out massively. And yeah, otherwise, thank you so much for joining today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think. Have you tried the Arteza gouache? Have you tried any of their, I think it's relatively new because I've not really seen it before. I've not heard anyone talking about these on YouTube before. But like, what do you think about these curated sets? Do you like the idea of them, or do you think it's just a bit of a gimmick and you'd be happier just mixing your own colours? There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I just think sometimes, you know, trying to mix the right colours or trying to come up with a colour palette can be quite overwhelming if you're new to a medium and you just want to focus on the painting side of it. Something like this kind of takes that edge off a little bit, at least for me. That's kind of how I feel about it, and I think it'll be a fun set to play with. It wasn't too expensive. I think they were about £15 for a set of 12, which I thought is pretty good. They come in 12mm tubes, and yeah, I'm pretty happy with it so far. So yeah, anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for joining. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and there's going to be a lot more videos coming your way very shortly. Alright, thank you for joining today. Stay tuned to watch the time lapse of the paintings, and I will see you next time. Alright, bye! Okay, so my camera battery died while I was finishing filming this last night, and I missed filming some of the pieces, and I think kind of got to the finishing stages and then it died. Anyway, here we are. It's the next day. It was actually 2 days later. Come back to show you the final finished pieces, and yeah, they're not like amazing works of art or anything, but they were really fun sort of abstract landscapes that I did in kind of like a color block style, and then went over and did some little doodles on some of them and added some dry brush texture to some as well, which I thought was quite fun to add. So you see it there with the green, just to give a bit of texture to some of them. I attempted clouds and failed. I am so bad at clouds. I really need to practice more with like skies, both in gouache and watercolor. And then I had some leftover gouache on the palette that I didn't want to waste. Now I know, the one thing I know about Arteza gouache, or that I've heard, is whilst it does re-wet, it's not the best at re-wetting compared to some of the more higher end gouache paints. So I did want to use up what was left on the palette, or as much of it as possible, so I wouldn't have like a ton of gouache left over. And so on the next page I just sort of did these backgrounds, I guess, and I haven't fully decided what I'm going to do with these. I might go over them with some paint pens or colour pencil or more gouache. I haven't figured it out, but I'll do something to decorate those backgrounds with. And yeah, so that's kind of where this video is going to end for right now. I will have links to the materials that I used, the gouache, the sketchbook. Like I said, I don't think this is necessarily the best for like strictly watercolor or water media. Like you can see, the pages do kind of wobble and warp a little bit, but they're not, I mean, it's not terrible by any stretch. I think it's 270 GSM, pretty smooth paper. I would call this more mixed media paper than anything else. And so it is good for like a host of other types of media as well. And it's, like I said, it's fairly smooth. It's probably closer to hot press than cold press paper. But yeah, otherwise these paints were really fun to work with. The colours, like I said, they go together really nicely. I think going forward, depending on what I want to paint, I would probably add like a red to the palette and maybe a darker blue. But other than that, I think it's a really nice palette to work with all together. And I had a lot of fun, and as you can see, the whole piece, the whole overall look of the 4 pieces together, because it was, you know, a pre-made color palette essentially, they kind of go together really nicely, and it's not, you don't have to think about it too much or try too hard to get a cohesive look, which is why I like them. And I really like the neutral earthy look of the colors as well. So yeah, that's it for now. Thank you for joining me today. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more, don't forget to subscribe. And let me know what you think down in the comments below about these sort of like curated sets of gouache colours, or do you prefer to have a more versatile mixing set and mixing your own colours from scratch? I don't think there's anything wrong with either option. I think it just depends on what you're looking for ultimately. But yeah, thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll see you next time. Bye!